Hello everybody. Today I'm going to be going over crowns. Before when I was going over prostheses, it was it was a generic thing. I touched a base on every one of them, but never something in depth. So in these coming episodes, I'm going to be going in depth on the different types of prosthesis and what the benefits are and what different types there are specifically. So in this episode again, I'm going to be going over crowns. Now, like as always, I'm not a dentist. What I do have is many years of experience in the dental field, selling treatment, educating patients on what situations they're in, what the doctor diagnosed them with, what they found, how can it be taken care of, and what can they do to prevent themselves in the future from potentially it happening again. So without further ado, crowns. So what are crowns? Crowns, in the simplest sense, are a form to cover and protect the inner layers of a tooth. So the outer part of the tooth, which is the white part that everybody sees in their tooth, that's called the crown. That's the part that you use for pretty much all daily activities when it comes to eating. And underneath that, you have the pulp, which is where your nerve system is, and then you have a second layer above that. And whenever you have, if your tooth by chance cracks, or if you had to get a root canal from a very deep cavity, among other things, primarily having to do with you losing a big chunk of the crown where a filling is just not strong enough to be able to take care of that area or replace it instead of a crown. The dentist, what he does in that situation is that he suggests putting a crown on the tooth. And what that does again is to protect the entirety of the tooth, and it keeps the root of the tooth inside your mouth, which is ultimately very, very important. So there's different types of crowns. There's some crowns that are more common than others. Some of them are becoming more of a mainstream, and then there are other ones that are, well, good. You really don't see them anymore. So the ones that are the two strongest ones right now, the ones that will last you a very, very long time, are zirconia crowns and the gold crowns. Now, gold crowns, they do last a very long time, but as far as I'm aware, I haven't really seen or heard any dentists do gold crowns anymore. Primarily because a lot of people don't want any metals inside their mouth, and so because of that, they've kind of fallen out of place. In addition to that, um, depending on where you are, gold crowns can be potentially dangerous. You can, so maybe, hopefully, God preventing, get robbed and stuff or killed even for a crown, especially a gold one. So you it and then in addition to that, you might be able to develop an allergy to it later in the future. Although there are no reports, as far as I'm aware, I haven't really done research into it, of many people becoming allergic to gold, because the body handles gold very, really, really well. But nonetheless, a lot of people don't like having metals in their mouth, which is another reason for why a lot of people want to replace their metal fillings with composite fillings. So um, zirconia crowns are extremely durable. They're actually very good for any situation. They're not invulnerable because they can still break, but they could definitely take a bigger beating. They're a lot stronger than your teeth, and they're actually really good for somebody who, if you have bruxism, they're actually really good for you because they can withstand the grinding of teeth. So in that aspect, it's really, really good. In addition to that, there is no metal in it at all. Um, it's a special type. It's a special type of plastic material that the body adapts really, really well. You have no secondary side effects whatsoever. And there's two different types. There's one that are more it's more natural looking. It's more like it has like a little translucency to it. And then you have the regular zirconia crowns. Now, granted, they both look, to me, in my opinion at least, they both look really, really good. The one that's look a little bit more translucent maybe looks a little bit more natural, but it's not something that's significantly different. And you're not really gonna, as another person looking out in is not gonna say, oh yeah, that's zirconia crown. No, they both look like natural teeth, but and they're both just as equally durable. So those are really zirconia crowns. The other type of crowns, now you have your porcelain metal crowns, which are the ones that they've been around for a very long time, and they've been using porcelain metal crowns for well over 20 years now. They they are porcelain on the outside. They are durable as well. They're not as durable as zirconia crowns, but they are very strong, and they can still take a beating. Um, they do have a metal underneath. The reason why is because when you cement the metal, it bonds much better to your natural tooth. So that's essentially why the metal is there. Um, with the zirconia crowns, there is no metal underneath, like I said before, because there is no metal, none whatsoever, and it bonds also really, really well to your teeth. There are a lot of reports that I've seen on people saying that dentists specifically saying that they have a really, really hard time removing a zirconia crown because of how well it's bonded into the tooth. So they've actually there are some dentists that have systems on how to remove a zirconia crown, and in most occasions, once it's in, it's in. With porcelain metal crowns, just about with any crowns, it's very important for you to understand that when they put a crown, they do cement it. Now, there's two different types of cement. There's a temporary cement, which normally the dentist uses when they're putting a temporary in preparation for the crown insert after it comes back from the lab, if it is that you're getting it done at a lab. And then once they put the actual crown, in very few occasions, a dentist will put temp cement. The reason why is probably because he wants to make sure that the tooth is perfectly fine. It could be either a root canal, or even if there's just a lot of loss in the tooth, and he just wants to make sure that you won't have to take it out because of pain. He wants to make sure that everything is good before he decides to replace the temp cement and put a permanent cement. When he does put the permanent cement, the tooth is in, and you don't want to arbitrarily just remove it, because it becomes very dangerous when you put cement on a tooth, and then just like in a house, if you put cement on a wall and then you try to remove the cement from where it's located, if it's really well placed, then you run the risk of also destroying, if there's destroying the block. If it's wood, you might, removing an extra piece off the other part. And it's the same thing with your tooth. When it comes to a crown and removing it, when you have a permanent cement, it can be dangerous, because the dentist, with hitting and hammering the crown, could potentially break a piece off of your tooth, and that could lead to you not being able to save the tooth at all and just have to get it removed and get an implant. So that's essentially why in certain situations, because there are times I have had patients who they've been going to different dentists and trying to get a crown removed because they might have not liked the way it looked, or they believe that it feels loose, and the dentist check and they tell them, well, at least ours does. I don't know if others do, but most occasions I've had patients come in and they tell me that nobody's ever explained it to them that way, or they didn't understand. And it's for that reason that a dentist might not remove a crown, dependent on how well cemented the crown is. If it's really well cemented and it might be just a fraction, just a little bit loose, then they more than likely won't remove it. They'll just wait for it to get looser and then to fall off. Now, if a dentist tells you that, the reason why they say that is because they're sure that your tooth is more than likely not going to fall off in the coming week or in the coming months. It might just be there. It might just stay there for years. But to keep an eye out, and if it does come off, then, or if it gets looser, then you definitely come in, and then if it's to the point where they can remove it easily without having to harm the tooth, then they will do it. So in terms of crowns, that's pretty much it for today. The next thing I'm going to be going over in the following episode is on partials. So as always, flourish and prosper, and have a good day.